Okay, so leading any kind of change in an organization, it's a huge challenge. We all know that. But the real test, the one that truly matters, is making sure that change isn't just effective, but that it's also fair, inclusive, and built to last. So let's dive into a roadmap that doesn't just tweak a few processes, but actually transforms the culture of an organization for the better. So let's start with the big question. Why do so many change initiatives fail? We invest all this time, all these resources, and we have the best of intentions, but the results just fall short. So what's going wrong? Well, it often comes down to one fundamental mistake, a mistake almost everyone makes. I mean, really think about it. Why is that? Why do so many projects that we pour our hearts into either just fizzle out, or even worse, end up creating all these brand new tensions within the team? What is going so wrong so often? And this, right here, this is the core error. We treat change like it's just a technical problem. We get laser focused on the tools, the new processes, the spreadsheets, and we completely forget the most essential part of the equation, the people, the human dynamics, the power structures, and that central question of equity. Because look, the real goal of meaningful change isn't just about optimizing a spreadsheet or gaining a few percentage points in performance. It's this incredible opportunity to actually deconstruct systems that might be inherently unfair and to build an environment that is truly more equitable for everyone involved. So, how in the world do we do that? Well, we need a roadmap. And for this, we're going to combine two incredibly powerful models that fit together perfectly. They create a guide that has both a really strong structure and a deep conscience. First up, we've got Kurt Lewin's classic change model. I want you to think of this as the skeleton of our entire process. It gives us the bones, the structure. It tells us what we need to do and when we need to do it. It's our practical, step-by-step map. And Lewin came up with this brilliant way to visualize it, the ice cube analogy. It's perfect. First, you unfreeze. You basically melt the old habits and the old ways of doing things to prepare the ground. Then you change. You pour that water into a new mold by bringing in new practices. And finally, you refreeze, solidifying that new shape so it becomes the new standard. Simple, visual, and so effective. But, a skeleton is nothing without a soul. And that's exactly where Stéphanie Nixon's framework comes in. This provides the conscience for our project. It's the part that forces us to stop and ask the really hard, sometimes uncomfortable questions. How are we doing this, and for whom are we really doing it? This quote from Stéphanie Nixon is just fantastic. It actually refers to a famous psychology experiment where people are told to count how many times a basketball is passed. And they're so focused on that, they completely miss a person in a gorilla suit walking right through the middle of the screen. Nixon says privilege is exactly like that. For those who have it, it's often completely invisible, but for everyone else, it is painfully obvious. And this is such a crucial point to get. Privilege and oppression are not separate issues. They are two sides of the very same coin, and they're both created by the same system. Now, this is a total game changer because it shifts the conversation away from personal guilt or individual failure and puts the focus right where it belongs, on the structure we all have to operate within. And that brings us to this vital concept of intersectionality. Because let's be real, no one is just one thing. We all exist on multiple coins at the same time. Our gender, our class, our abilities, and so on. It's the unique intersection of all these factors that shapes our individual experience of the world. And recognizing this complexity is the key to moving beyond simple labels and actually understanding where people are coming from. Okay, so we've laid the theoretical groundwork, that's great, but how do we actually do this? Let's move from theory to action and see how this all builds into a real transformation on the ground. So in that unfreeze phase, it is all about preparation. It has to start with a powerful why that's deeply connected to your mission. Then you've got to strategically find and onboard allies, especially those in positions of power. But maybe most importantly, as you can see in step 3, you have to listen. You have to create truly safe spaces to hear people's fears and their doubts before you can even think about moving forward. Now we get to the change phase, and the key word here is support. You can't just throw new rules at people. You have to support them with training, with coaching, with resources. You set up quick feedback loops so you can constantly adjust your course. And critically, you reframe resistance. It's not a wall to be smashed through. It's a valuable source of information. Empathy becomes your most powerful tool here. And finally, the refreeze phase. This is absolutely essential to make sure all that hard work doesn't just evaporate. You have to anchor the change in concrete things, new policies, performance indicators, team rituals. It's also so important to celebrate the wins, both big and small. But remember, refreezing isn't the end of the story. It's just creating a new, more solid foundation that has to stay flexible and keep evolving. Okay, this brings us to our final and maybe most important section. How do we make sure this isn't just a one-off project? How do we make this a permanent part of the organization's culture, its DNA? Well, sustainable change really rests on these three pillars. You have the Nixon framework, which acts as our moral compass for equity. You have the Lewin structure, which is our practical map for action. But holding it all together is that third pillar, the collective mindset, a culture that values empathy, collaboration, and is always willing to question itself. And this mindset isn't just some abstract concept. You can see it in very real, concrete actions. It's about breaking down those departmental silos so ideas can flow freely. It's about actively seeking out feedback, especially the uncomfortable kind that shows you your blind spots. And it's about making a conscious effort to amplify the voices that are usually heard the least, because that's often where the greatest insights are hiding. You know, this quote, inspired by the Aboriginal activist and artist Lilla Watson, just perfectly sums up this whole philosophy. The idea isn't for those with privilege to help or save others. No, it's the deep recognition that these unfair systems bind all of us, just in different ways. Our liberation is interconnected. It's a call for solidarity, not for charity, and that changes everything. And so that really leaves us with a fundamental choice. For every change project you face from here on out, are you going to settle for a simple technical procedure? Or are you going to seize the opportunity to lead a true cultural transformation? The roadmap is right here. The choice is yours.